welcome back. And we've just been checking around Arathusa Dam, and we spotted some elephants on the western side of the dam wall. So we're just gonna try and make our way in there, see if we can get a nice visual of them. They are tucked away in the drainage line, but it will give us a nice opportunity to see them. Hopefully we can find a really nice visual. Unfortunately, I did just get an update from some of the guides that the Nkahuma Pride have moved across into Elephant Plains. So just across our boundary, they've been following a very large breeding herd of buffalo. Just waving hello to one of the other guides, Ryan from Arathusa. He was actually with the elephants a moment ago. So let's just try and tuck our noses into the drainage line here. See if maybe we can get a visual of these eddies. Really cool thing about these short wheel-based vehicles that we drive is that they can get us to a lot of places that the somewhat larger, more cumbersome safari vehicles actually can't. I'm really enjoying being able to use these vehicles. And I'm becoming fairly attached to Jigger right now. I've been driving it for quite a while. Eddies. It is a very warm afternoon, and they've decided that the best way to deal with that is to tuck themselves into this drainage line. Moment to work out what was going on there, but there is a little baby just tucked away in front of Mom. I couldn't see it so clearly at first, but there it is. And this looks like the same little group that Andrew and I were with yesterday afternoon on the sunset safari, where we made a slightly brief unknowing cameo appearance. I'm almost certain this is the same group. If the female turns to us at some point, and if she does have a slight nick in her right ear, quite a round nick, sort of between the middle and the bottom, same group. But I'm fairly certain that it is. And there's that young male who was just a little bit cheeky when we first came in. He's obviously relaxed quite a bit now. You can see how bare that ground is. Mom's obviously been using her feet to dig around, and so is the baby. She's currently munching on the grass at the base there. I thought for a second she was eating the spike thorn that's in front of her, but she doesn't seem to be doing that. She's actually kicking up the grass in the area and getting hold of some roots at the base. Not sure what it is they're smelling, but it's obviously something quite delicious because she's very determinedly digging in there. You can see the younger elephant is sniffing with his trunk, and then in places where he finds a good spot, then he uses his feet to dig. Young male has been picking up and then eating the grass, just getting rid of all of the dust before he puts it in his mouth. I can also hear, rather than see, one off to my left as well, tucked away in the bushes somewhere. So we do have a nice small herd, just enjoying the shade of the afternoon. Still digging away. Baby's trunk immediately goes in there to sniff for whatever she's after. There she's using the back of her heel, those very, very tough feet, to push the dirt away. And then the trunk moves in afterwards to pick up whatever they're after, and that could be after some seeds that are underground, or root systems. Some fresh grass there. You can see the nice green color. I'm not sure if she's after those roots there. And the little male seems to think that this is far too much effort. It's just been grabbing at the grass. We are right in this drainage line with the spike-thorn thicket. So those are the trees that are in front of the elephants there. And they retain that incredible green color. They're one of the few trees around in this area that do retain that green color throughout the year. But in the same, very similar style to Magic Guarri, they are not very palatable. They don't have a very, very high nutrition content. And generally their best use for feeding elephants is to act as a great teething companion. But obviously Mom's decided she'd like to have a go. And elephants are one of the few species that will actually regularly feed on spike thorns, which is one of the most important reasons why elephants are such keystone species. Because spike-thorn plants are what's known as bush encroachment species, and they do often grow in clumps like this at the expense of other vegetation. And elephants play a very crucial role in keeping their numbers down. Tiny little tail that is so important in mood, showing their mood. And here comes the other little one that I could hear. This is definitely the same group of 4 that Andrew and I saw yesterday, just north of this position that we're at. We're just to the west of Arethusa Dam in the drainage line. And this little one has got some serious tusks on him. Quite solid little, very thick, and he's going to be quite a big boy when he's older. Now I'm sure that these 4 are not alone. There must be the rest of the herd either somewhere close by or maybe a little way away. it is very unusual to see a female alone with 3 youngsters like this. They definitely can't all be her offspring. The little one on the right is definitely her son. We did see him suckling yesterday. But as for the other 2, I'm not too sure. They might have strayed behind a herd, been a little bit slower than the others, and are just staying together until they find the rest of their herd. So it's great that we actually get to share this herd with you this afternoon. We didn't manage it yesterday, but I'm glad to see. I'm still waiting to see that female's right ear. She hasn't turned around nicely for us yet, but I'm sure it is the same group. It's definitely the same group, hey Andrew?
I think so, yeah.
Hello, little one. There you can see how close we are to Arathusa Lodge itself. Just some of the guest rooms at the back there. And you'll see this very yellow grass that's on the ground. That's actually old thatch from the lodge itself. And they often put it in areas like this when they're replacing the thatch, just to help manage erosion. He's currently eating the most common grass species in the world, to the best of my knowledge, the Phragmites grass, or the reed grass, the most widely distributed and found grass species throughout the world, not just in southern Africa. And up to the left of him, we do actually... Oh, there's baby, still digging. Still digging away. And if we just move up and to the left of that one young male, there's a kingfisher on the branch just up to the left of him. It looks like a brown hooded. I'm just going to get a little bit closer and have a look. Yep. Very, very sweet. And as with a lot of the kingfishers that we find in this area, the name kingfisher is actually quite deceptive, because only 1 or 2 of them in this family are actually fishers, so that they actually feed on fish. In this case, this particular kingfisher is an insect eater, which is why he's hanging out with this elephant herd as a way of catching the insects that are disturbed, in the same way that fork-tailed drongos do. And Mom did that low rumbling call that I absolutely love, and he's just telling these 3 young boys that it's time to move, quite possibly towards the water to have a drink, so we'll stay with them for a while. And I'm not going to get between her and her little family. Very interesting little dynamic. It must be fairly hard work for this lone female to have 3 young boys, which is what she's got here. Sure. So that young male just took the opportunity to bully the baby, and here comes Mommy running in response to her youngster's scream. It wasn't me, Mommy. Promise it wasn't me. It wasn't me, Mom. It wasn't me, I promise. It's okay, your baby's fine. Your baby's fine. And that little male urinating in a fear response. So he took the opportunity. He thought Mommy was far enough away to bully her baby. And here you can hear the communication grumbles as Mom just checks up on her youngster, make sure that it's okay. Here you go. That youngster quite literally just told on or snitched on the little male, and he's in trouble now from Mommy.
It's interesting. How did the mom know it was that one and not the other one's fault?
That was very interesting. Andrew raises a very good point. She looked at us because she thought we might have done or been responsible for that. It wasn't me, Mom. It wasn't me. All right, Ma. Okay, Ma. It wasn't me, I promise. We had nothing to do with it. I know. That female very clearly knew which young male was responsible for bullying her baby. And I honestly believe, honestly, that the baby actually indicated to her where the fault lay. She went straight to her baby. The baby communicated and was obviously not necessarily in the way that we would understand in terms of being verbal. Yeah, Mommy's rumbling. She's just rumbling out her warning. But I think the way that the baby was acting towards that young male who had bullied him immediately told Mom who was responsible for that scream that we heard. So very, very cool interaction there. And it just goes to show how incredibly bright elephants are. Because if we had been responsible for that reaction from the baby, if we were a little bit too close, made it a little bit uncomfortable, you can be absolutely certain that Mom would be showing the same reaction to us as she did to that little elephant. And she very definitely came up to us. It was not aggression. It was, listen, I'm bigger than you, and you better not mess with my baby. Warning signs. But it is interesting because this little one that we are looking at now is very, very clearly the youngster of this female, and she's quite a young female. She is fully grown, but she's quite young. And as I mentioned before, I do not think that these other 2 young males are her offspring. So we do have this funny little herd dynamic where we've got a mother and calf, and then 2 slightly older males, probably around, I would say, 7 to 8 years old in the case of the oldest one. And Mavis, you were wondering why it is that the mothers of these 2 young males wouldn't be necessarily looking for them. And there is a chance that the mothers are looking around for them. It is fairly common for elephant herds to splinter off and then come back together, especially in the dry season where they are sort of really stretched for resources and they have to spread out their feeding area much, much further. But these 2 young males are old enough now that their mothers would have had... No, don't you start. I don't want your mommy coming to talk to me because you've caused trouble. But I do think that the mothers of these 2 young males would already have had other calves. Now look here, I wonder if this little one is going to go and cause trouble with another male and then squeal when it gets its comeuppance, and then mommy will come running back to rescue him again. So guys, I'm going to keep a very close eye on this interaction and just see how it develops. I think the 3 of them have now established boundaries, and that is basically that the little one rules. Yes, hello? Are you coming to say hello? And as is very typical in elephant behavior, when one elephant feels a little bit bullied and a little bit like he lost the dominance battle, they usually do come and try and take it out a little bit on the vehicle to take their chances and see if they can intimidate you in any way. But I think that this little interaction has basically played itself out. The baby has established itself as very well protected and is going to be able to get away with pretty much whatever he likes. So, from one elephant group sighting to another, Steph has an amazing swimming pachyderm in Buffelshoek Dam, and we'll be back with you a little bit later.
And from one very interesting animal to elephant interaction to another, this is an Ellie having a bath. Can you believe what he's busy doing? Just like we spoiled for choice at the moment. Have a look at this. Having an absolute whale of a time. He's actually lying down. It's not that it's that deep. He's actually lying down. And rolling over on his side, kicking up some mud. I'll have a look. Maybe he rolls over again for us. Cooling down after a hot day. Just one patch on his back that hasn't managed to get any water. Look at that trunk just sticking out. It's not uncommon for elephants to swim. They're actually quite buoyant. And elephants have been known to swim out into the sea. Not African elephants as much as what I've seen pictures of Indian elephants swimming, but definitely elephants will cross rivers and cross lakes. They don't mind swimming at all. There is actually a hippo in here as well, right at his face. Yeah, you can almost see the fun they have when they're having a bath, I must say. Washing out his mouth. Now that his skin has been bathed, he can now spray his mouth clean. The hippo is just staying very hidden. Not that the elephant will do anything to the hippo. Have a look at the color of that water, that green water. It actually looks a lot cleaner than what it in fact is. I mean, that green that it is there is just an algae bloom. Still quite a lot of water in here in actual fact. Yes, that is bath. Very clean elephant at the moment. And that was the hippo blowing. Generally speaking, male elephant become quite playful when they've just had a bath, and let's see if he decides to come and have a game with us. Have a look how quickly he will go from a shiny wet elephant to just a damp elephant. Testimony to how dry it is over here. He's having a scratch. He's scratching his ear with his trunk and he's scratching his leg with his foot. Just showing us a bit of a trick. Excuse me, I'm just going to be on the radio quickly. Wrong channel. Have a look at that young Ellie, once again reunited with his herd. What Brian and I didn't tell you is that we've been surrounded by elephants in actual fact. I'm going to be turning the car around a little bit just so that we can see what's happening here again. To do that, I'm going to ask Brian just to have a look at how far we can actually reverse over here. I'm trusting Brian to reverse for me over here. Can I? You'll see that the angle is going to change here quite substantially as you start looking into space with us going down the embankment. All right, we are pretty much eye level with elephant at the moment. Quite a unique position to be in. Now we've got some other elephant that have just come out of the bush for a drink as well. Let's see what they do. This is another young male. Might be from the same herd. He was just taking his time coming out of the bush. And female in the background there, just getting rid of some of excess wood and water. They only really are able to digest about 20% of what they eat, and it's important that that happens. Elephant really, part of what they do is have a look at this guy now. He's actually trying to have a sand bath, but because the wind is blowing so much, the sand he's throwing on himself is actually missing himself. We're going to have to go back onto the road here because we've got one elephant bathing, we've got another one. Let's see if we can do it. We're surrounded by Ellies over here. I'm going to just turn the car around a little bit. Bear with me here. We've got another entire herd going to come down here to drink. I just want to put us in a position where we can watch everything but without getting in the way. Alrighty. So while we're waiting for these elephants to come down, and while we're having a look at this, we did get a question a little bit earlier that I'd like to address now from Maggie, who was wanting to know if kudus can have twins, and that she's actually seen kudus have twins before. She took a photograph in the Kruger National Park a couple of years ago, and absolutely, Maggie, almost all animals can have twins. It's not common for a lot of animals to have twins, but definitely kudu can have twins. Elephant can have twins as well. Have a look at this. We've pretty much got Ellie's here. Have a look at this elephant trying to drink here. Sorry, Brian, I don't mean to. We've got a young elephant here that's trying to drink from his mom. And he wants to drink. Mommy's not letting him. You'll see he'll go for her mammary glands sit between her front legs. Oh, and he's going to try and get in there. Well, I can tell you that that's never happened before, having an elephant right underneath our car like that. I mean, that definitely... We've got some more elephants. Excuse me, just trying to get out the way. Wow, this is incredible. What an incredible sighting. You'll notice that green water, we weren't the only people to notice it. Safari has also noticed that there's some green algae in the water and is wanting to know if it's poisonous. Safari, I can't really say. I doubt that it'll be poisonous enough for elephants to die from it. I don't think that you or I could drink this water without getting a bit sick. But definitely seems to be okay. I mean, there's a lot of footprints of various animals around here. We're not finding dead animals around this water, so I think it's okay. And then Linda in Shelbyville, Illinois, has asked us if elephants will eat pond weeds and pond grasses. Absolutely. Elephants will eat almost anything, to be quite honest with you. They are supreme vegetarians. Just have a look at this. Would you like me to move my car? I'm just going to try and turn the car a bit so we can get that horrible aerial out your way. Can I turn your side out? How's that? Is that good? We're just on a very skinny embankment here, and it's taking a bit of a team effort so that we don't roll down on top of these elephants. As you noticed from the way these elephants seem to walk right underneath our car. Hello everybody. It's just myself and Brian's silhouette on the elephant, using them as a bit of a backdrop. There we go. That's the hand that owns the thumb. Now, for those who are watching this show or didn't have the pleasure of joining us this morning, yesterday, excuse me, elephant drink at least once a day. An elephant this size will drink about 150 liters of water a day. And they are water dependent. Elephant can't move far away from water. However, far is a relative term. But they come back and drink it every second day at least. Here comes this little guy again. You can see how steep the bank is. He's not quite fitting on it. We have got many elephants coming down to drink. We're literally surrounded by elephants at the moment. I don't know how many are around us. We've probably got a good 30 or 40 elephants around us at the moment. Let's see if this little guy actually uses his trunk or is just copying. It takes them a long time to learn to use their trunk. I think he's just copying. Definitely less than a year old. Have a look at that little guy. Oh, cute, man. This is really a really wonderful elephant sighting. See that this bull elephant is a young bull elephant, lost his tusk, and that could happen for a variety of reasons. Usually an elephant's bigger than what he is. It can be in fighting. 90% of the time though, it is from feeding. He was a little bit too hard on a branch, or a little bit too ambitious on a branch that he was must be sore. I mean, there's a massive nerve inside those tusks. It doesn't seem to affect elephants too bad, I'll be honest. I've seen many elephants with one and even no tusks. That little Ellie decided to go for a walk with his cousin or his brother. Let's see what he does there. Shouldn't really stray too far from mom. We'll see now how brave he is. Let's see how he goes up there. Looking like he's drunk. Go. Watching an elephant climb an embankment. Why they choose the steepest part, who knows? All types of noises coming from these ellies at the moment. See, that little guy has finally managed to get a drink. Mom slaked her thirst and now she can attend to the baby's needs. Oh, still not enough. Trying the other side. now they're just busy relaxing next to this water. It's quite funny watching these elephants. It's always tough to say what they're going to do. There's some playfulness going on. And watching that little one over there, watching him play with the grass and play with his brother. Look, they're grabbing his tongue. Ginny Dahlberger has asked approximately how old will this little guy be when he's weaned, or any of these babies. Now, it's quite a far-ranging estimate. It's between 3 and 8 years that elephants are weaned, but in general they are weaned just before the mom has another baby. So that's why the process takes so long. So just before the mom has a new baby, the previous baby is weaned. I think that little guy's going to chase that bird. And that little elephant over there is going to chase that blacksmith lapwing. Can't leave those birds away. I think it's a 3-banded plover actually. Yeah, exactly. It was a 3-banded plover. I wonder where that little guy's going. He's very brave walking so far away. Oh, no, not that brave. No, he just wants to see what's around the corner. Most young elephants won't be far away, and literally won't be without touching range, without. And this little guy's walked all the way to the other side of this dam to have a drink there. I think he's feeling free. Where are you going, little guy? Just showing how independent he can actually be. No, not brave enough to go around the corner. Last rebellious mouthful before mom calls him back. Jill has just asked, looking at these little guys and looking at how much they're enjoying the water, does mom's milk supply dwindle during dry spells? Jill, no. She might, it might go to a point where the milk is reduced, but it'll never stop, not unless the mother really loses condition. And it's one of the things about elephant is they're so adaptable, and they can feed on such a wide variety of vegetation that they actually make fantastic mothers. And you find that elephant babies very rarely die of starvation. It has been known that elephant babies will die of dehydration before they'll die of starvation. And starvation only really becomes a problem once the ellies are a bit older and lose the ability to chew the food that they need to ingest to stay healthy, keep their big bodies healthy. Now these two teenagers have been slowly but surely wrecking every single tree on that island since we got here. I was waiting for this question to come up, and Lindsay's asked it. How do baby elephants get water if they don't yet know how to use their trunks? Lindsay, it's a good question, that, because they only really learn how to use their trunks from about 6 months old, and it takes them many years to get to grips with their trunks. Lindsay, they will actually fold their trunks over the top of their heads and dip their faces into the water and drink like that. So they'll fall onto their knees, put their faces in the water, and then drink with their mouths and not with their trunks. It's quite funny to watch, actually. Shame, and they look so vulnerable when they do it. Feeding away this time of the year, feeding anywhere up to 24 hours a day to get enough food into their systems. That'll reduce quite drastically in the wet season or in our summertime. There'll be so much vegetation around, they'll spend a lot more time traveling to specific feeding spots, specific fruit trees. The matriarch of this herd will know exactly where special trees or special fruit are and special mineral deposits that she was shown by her mother, and she'll take her herd there and they'll go and eat that. I even knew of an elephant that did an 80-kilometer round trip to go and feed off one specific marula tree. Can you believe it? Fairly common tree around. All of the marulas were bearing fruit, but this specific elephant went to a specific tree just to go and eat that fruit. Don't know what she did on the way there. She might have done something else. Visited a friend, or who knows what they were doing. The wind has picked up quite considerably at the moment. Looks like it's going to be a blustery evening. It's been quite warm for the day, almost berg windy. And what I mean by that is that we're quite close to the Drakensberg escarpment here, and what happens is if weather is coming off of the plateau, the inland plateau, as it comes off of the Drakensberg, it actually heats up by 1 degree per 100 meters. And quite often this wind that comes off of there feels like it's coming out of a furnace. And today, the wind that's been blowing since early this morning has been this hot, dry wind. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was the herald of a cold front that's coming over, one of the last of the season, and bringing with it some cloud, hopefully. That little guy. Off to go and cause some mischief somewhere. Now with this man-made dam, this is a man-made dam that we've been sitting next to. What do elephants do in areas that don't have man-made dams? And Juliet in Wyoming has asked the question, do elephants dig for water? Or in actual fact, the question is, I've heard elephants can dig for water. Have I ever seen this happen? And the answer to that, Juliet, is yes. You find signs of elephant digging for water in almost every single drainage line around here in the sand. Elephants really enjoy clean water, and where they can get it, they will absolutely dig for water rather than drink out of a muddy pond or a pond full of algae. This particular water body is still quite big. Even though the water is green, it doesn't look like it's not fresh. But absolutely, elephants will dig for water. They use their trunks and their feet to dig for water. They can actually dig quite extensive excavations. We will be starting up the walks again in a couple of weeks, and I'll be sure to bring you some footage of an elephant excavation for water. I quite enjoy digging in them to see if I can reach the water as well. What a fantastic shot. Wind is actually blowing strong enough to blow the car around at the moment. Quite nice. Doesn't bode well for our animal sightings, although I must be honest, I've seen leopard run from impala herd to impala herd when wind is blowing this hard. So maybe the wind actually blows away our bad luck, takes away our streak of not finding leopard for you. Amazing to sit in the presence of these massive animals. Wind is blowing hot out of the southeast, blowing across the dam and into Brian and I's faces. Still flapping their ears to reduce their core body temperature. Oh, what's happening here? We've got a little elephant running in, full charge, tripped in the sand. Well, brother kicked him in the face. We got a back kick there from a ninja in training to his little brother that came running out of nowhere, trumpeting his head off. How bizarre. Here comes another one running down the sand. Let's see if he also makes that classic little kid mistake of running down the sand dune and forgetting it levels out. No, a little bit more caution in that one, in that descent. I just have this picture running through my mind at the moment of a little kid running down a sand dune. I know I did it on numerous occasions as a young child. And where the sand dune ends in the level beach, your legs just can't take the pressure and you end up eating a lot of sand. That was funny. I mean, he must be feeling quite deflated now. That was a full-on charge from him that ended up with him getting a face full of sand. Anyway, no harm done. All part of the learning game. That's that little elephant giving a big trumpet. boisterous and playful, that's it. Linda has asked, how does a female elephant become a matriarch? And that's a good question, Linda. Linda, or matriarchs are females that are the oldest, the most experienced, and the strongest. Those three. Oldest, wisest, and strongest. And it's generally speaking the oldest female that you can see, although there are times in elephant herds when you'll find a definite matriarch, definite leader of the pack that is trailed by a much older elephant. And that's because that elephant isn't strong anymore. It's just literally just associated with the herd. For comfort's sake. So definitely the oldest, the most experienced, the oldest, wisest, and strongest. And it's something that Virginia has commented on as well. Virginia, you're quite correct in that. Have a look at that interaction that's going on over there. Sorry, Brian. We've got a water thickney that's being chased by a blacksmith lapwing. You probably find it's because the lapwing's eggs are close by. There's a big game there. Stop chasing. No, still chasing. Those lapwings, they don't like any other bird being around them at all. They're quite selfish for their little spot on the riverbank or on the dam's bank. The bush around us, I think it's our cue to carry on. It's been such a fantastic sighting. So I think it would be a good idea for us to get off this embankment and go and look for something else, don't you? Like, let's carry on going. Wind is blowing up nice and strong. Sun is going to be going down in about 20 minutes or so. You can see the tops of those trees, how much they're blowing in the wind at the moment. Wind has definitely been picking up in intensity. It's going to make for quite a nice afternoon of lustiness. Right, now we are going to go through these elephants. Elephant shook his ears at me and I just got covered in sand, and subsequently my eyes got covered in sand as well. Oof, flies are crazy again. Today actually hasn't been so bad, funnily enough. Not nearly as bad as yesterday, although I heard Jamie was plagued this morning. Brian is sufficiently covered. It looks like something that's about to steal this car rather than add value to it. Jan has asked a nice question about elephants trumpeting and how is it actually made? Hold on, it's made just by air and it's made in this part of the trunk, the part.
Het enige slechtvalpaardje in de stad is doodgevonden.
And they can contract or expand that chamber and use that as a resonating chamber or to make that high-pitched squeal that they make. Definitely air, definitely made with a trunk only. And then they can open up their mouths, which give like a bassiness to the sound that they make. But they really have got a massively wide range of sound. From that incredibly high-pitched scream that they can do, it's ear-splitting, almost, to, here we go, we've got something on this termite mound that, we've got another one over there. There's a troop of vervet monkeys. We don't often get to see them on camera. I'll see if we can show them to you. So just to finish that off, from a scream, ear-splitting scream, all the way down to infrasound, which we can't even hear, it's so low, their range of noises is actually see if we can get these monkeys. That looks like they've run away. No, they've run away. Sorry about that. Anyway, one of those things. Still busy picking sand out of my face from that elephant. Myself and Brian check up carefully on this road for any sign of anything that has crossed over from our northern neighbors into our side. We're going to be crossing back to Jamie, who's I'm sure got an update on her elephants that she's been sitting with patiently, and we'll catch up with you in a little bit when we've got some new updates. See you soon.
So, welcome back everyone, and we have left our group of elephants that we have nicknamed the Goldilocks gang because of the three sort of different aged elephants and then the mama elephant looking after them, and we have headed off in search of our mysterious leopards that Steph was tracking this morning. So at the moment, because there's been so much traffic, we haven't actually got any specific tracks to go off, and I'm just looping around the area and having a look to see if anything pops up around here. Definitely checking the drainage lines very, very carefully just to see if there's anything tucked away and hidden in there. The same process repeated itself with the young elephant calf squealing, or at least trying to get the older one's food and then squealing when the older one pushed back, and mommy came running back once again. A bit less dramatic than the first time. It was almost like mom had realized that her baby was causing the trouble and then telling on the older elephant. So this time she wasn't quite so quick to discipline the older boy. John in Atlanta. Welcome as always to the Sunset Safari. And John noticed that one of the juveniles gave me a perfect poo sample for my juvenile elephant poo project. I'm sure there's a better name. I'm sure I can think of a better name. And John wants to know if I had managed to collect it. And unfortunately not, John. When I left the elephants, they were all milling around exactly where the dung was deposited. So I'll have to head back in that area maybe tomorrow morning on the sunrise safari and just go and grab the dung. I didn't think that mommy elephant wanted to be tested any more than she already had been. And for those of you who are a little bit confused by what I'm talking about, perhaps you're joining us for the first time or missed some of the drives when this was discussed, it started out with a bit of a guessing game where I picked up some very, very tiny elephant dung from a very young Ellie, and we played a bit of a guessing game as to how old that particular elephant might have been. And I had no idea myself. I honestly didn't know the answer. And I decided that it would make quite a fun project to just collect various samples from different ages of little elephants that I actually saw defecating. So I would know roughly how old they were, and then build up a little bit of a knowledge database inside my own head as to how old the different sizes of dung, how old the elephants would be that had deposited them. Just purely for interest's sake, to make tracking a little bit more interesting. And imagine how cool it would be to be able to stop at any kind of baby elephant dung sample and be able to say this one is roughly this old, a year and a half old. Unfortunately, I didn't think it was worth risking the mother's wrath, so I left it for the time being. I will head back there at some point fairly soon. The nice thing about this particular project is it doesn't necessarily have to be fresh, as long as I've had a chance to see the elephant that's deposited it. Whilst I'm looking for these leopards that appear to have me stumped at the moment, I think I managed to stump our viewers in terms of that tree quiz that we did right at the beginning of the Sunset Safari. And the answer, which apparently nobody managed to get, is that it is a caterpillar bush or a caterpillar pod tree. Also, the Latin name is Omacarpum trichocarpum, for those of you who might be interested in looking it up. And I haven't, honestly, in all fairness, it was a very tricky quiz, because I must say I haven't seen that many of them around here. That was maybe the second or the third that I've seen, which is why I was so keen to stop and have a look at it. And interestingly enough, I used to work on a reserve not far from here, and we participated in that release of black rhino, and we did a bit of a feeding study afterwards. We just had a look at what they were eating as the time went on, and that was really one of their absolute favorite foods. And they're one of the few animals that I've ever seen nibbling on them. I've never seen elephants eat them. I've definitely never seen any of the browsers such as kudu nibble on them. So it was very interesting to see and gain that particular information. I'm just checking thoroughly on the sodic patch to make sure I don't miss any leopard tracks. And the reason it is called the caterpillar bush or the caterpillar pod tree is because of its flowers. They look uncannily like little hairy caterpillars. Exactly like them. So sort of long, narrow, furry things. And unfortunately for you guys, it would have been an enormous help and quite a big hint. But it's not flowering season for the caterpillar pod tree. well done to all of you who tried. There were some very, very good guesses. They do not have any spines or thorns of any type, which sets them apart from the monkey oranges and the camel thorns of this area. The leaves look very, very similar to some acacia trees because they are so tiny, but they are not bipinnately compound. So they have leaflets, but not multiple sets of leaflets on each leaf. And I feel like we might be getting closer to where these tracks were. I'm almost certain I just saw Steph's footsteps heading in this direction, or these tracks from this morning. It is one of those weird things that you learn to do for some, or maybe it's just me actually. I've never asked any others in walking guides, but I always become very, very aware of my fellow guides' shoe pattern. It's just something that I've picked up just out of habit from looking down and looking for tracks. I automatically start associating their tracks with them. Lots and lots of hyenas. The older leopard tracks from this morning, I still haven't seen anything particularly fresh. Observation, and one which I'm quite confused by. I can't quite work out why this is the case, but I have not been plagued by a single fly this afternoon. Have you, Andrew?
Not even one.
Not one. And this morning they were driving us absolutely insane on Juba. And now I don't know what Steph's afternoon's been like in terms of fly action, but it's really, really strange. We're not that far from Juba at all, a couple of kilometers at the most. And yet, for some reason, there is not a single fly that has at any point sat on my face or my ears or my eyelashes during this drive. I'm not sure what it was that had them fluttering about this morning. Apparently, Steph, there are no flies on Steph, which I can quite readily believe. He is a very experienced, very wise bushman.
Maybe it's because I woke up late this morning and forgot to have a shower. Didn't have time.
Ah.
Potentially.
So it might have all been Andrew's fault because he overslept and didn't shower this morning. I'm not too sure, although so far the only pieces of evidence we have is that Andrew showered and that we came to Arathusa. So one of those must be responsible for our lack of flies. And this really is the most beautiful part of Arathusa. These drainage lines make for some quite dramatic scenery. They also make for perfect hiding places for sneaky leopards who have decided they don't want to be seen today. winter, just imagine what it is like to drive this road in summer. I can't imagine it's much fun. Have a very brief visual of a dwarf mongoose dance into this log and vanish somewhere. I don't know where it disappeared to. I think we might be a little bit close for it to feel comfortable to poke its head out. Let's see if there's any other little ones. Oh, I don't know where that one disappeared to, and I'm sure there's more in the area. Definitely promises to be quite a spectacular sunset with all of this dust that's in the air. So our dwarf mongoose friend obviously was feeling a little bit camera shy, and it's time for us to continue our mission. Still don't see where it's gone. And in the meantime, we will hit the road and head off. Obviously really didn't want to be seen, which is unusual for dwarf mongoose. They tend to be quite shy. Maybe this little one was a little bit far from his family and was feeling a little bit insecure. So Carla, you had a request at the start of the sunset safari that you were hoping that there would be a lion around the next bend, and in fact Steph has fulfilled this particular wish. So enjoy your time with Steph and his lion, and we will see you a bit later.
Well, welcome back to Brian and myself, and I must say, we got a message on the radio saying that the monkeys were calling at a dam, at Sydney's dam. We got there only to our dismay to find out that that there was fresh tracks of a female leopard that went through to go and drink there at some point this afternoon. And then while we were sitting there, we heard some kudu barking, and when I turned around to look up the road, a lioness crossed the road in front of us, and there the lioness is over there. We're going to try and show it to you. She is walking quite fast. I don't know what she's doing, to be honest with you. This was the area where the Birmingham boys went into last night, roaring their heads off. And there's a good chance that this lioness has been split off from the rest of her pride in the chaos around what was potentially might have been the Birmingham boys trying to stake their claim on this particular pride. On our way home last night, we bumped into the 4 lioness. Not too sure which pride they're from even. But we bumped into 4 lioness on the way home last night. Their tracks were what we were following. Now, this is getting very thick here. We're going to have to just loop around. It's going to get a bit bumpy. Okay, we're going to lose her here. Very thick here. And with all the elephant activity around this dam, they haven't made it easy for us. So we're trying to get around this thicket. I still have this lioness visual. She's off on our left hand side, probably 200 meters or so. Definitely not making it easy for us to follow her. Watch your face. What I'm going to do is take this game path. It's going parallel to where she is moving. Trying not to give us a puncture. It's amazing how effortless these animals move through the bush, and even though we are as big as a small elephant, we don't move nearly as easily as what they do. She doesn't look like she's hunting at all. She just looks like she's moving. You'll see her come out in the bushes in front of us now. I'm not too sure who this lion is. Go, Andrew. Making her way through to Aubrey's or Sandy Patch. You should get out at the Sandy Patch. That I can see that big boer bean. Excuse me for being on the radio at the moment. We're the only people that can copy that. We're the only people that can actually follow in our small little cars through this thick bush, and so Andrew has actually had to leave and wait for us to come around. And see that lioness now off to my shoulder. She's definitely moving in a sense. It's not unnatural seeing her move the way she is. I'm trying to see if she's doing any contact calls. I can't see that she is. Try and follow her as much as what we can, but I see we're going into some thick bush here again. Please excuse me for not looking around as often as what I do. But if I'm not to give us a massive puncture, Now, how I judge how close we follow these animals and the distances that we do that, I look at their ears. If a lioness's or a lion's ears is pointing forward, then we know we're not bothering them. If they're pointing backwards the whole time, we know we're having a bit of an effect. Just gonna try and follow her through here, let her pick our route. Okay, she's seen something, so I've immediately switched off. So the second that she stopped and looked like that with her tail twitching, I can't see at all what she's looking at. Just testimony to how good these animals' senses are, to be honest with you. Carry on following it. There we go. Shit, whatever was bothering her, or whatever she saw, has moved off. Christy's just asked me, is she hurt? And Christy, no, she's not hurt at all. So it doesn't look like they had any negative effects from whatever that happened. She's just looking for something. She's definitely not hunting. Or she may be hunting. She's definitely not running from anything. Hello. It's a company car. We just had the guest on Andrew's car just remark at how we got through there without any damage at all. It's just testimony to the maneuverability of these little cars that we got. See if we can get a good view of this lioness as she walks past, so that you can see she's in excellent condition. That scar on her back should be diagnostic. For those of you who follow these lions over the years, I'm still a bit too new at this particular reserve to be able to identify these lions from those marks, but she's a young lioness. She's just become an adult, and then that scar on her flank, or on her back just before her hips, should be diagnostic. She's got a bit of a fright. Once again, I'm just watching her ears. If her ears are pointed forwards like they are at the moment, we're not bothering her. If they pointed back at us, then there would be it. Then it means that I need to keep my distance a little bit. But she's fine. I think if I were to offer a guess, lionesses walk almost all day. They have been known to walk almost all day. I'm not going to say that she's running away from anything, or she's going to cub, she's going to a kill, she's been scattered away from her pride. She could just be out for a walk. It could be any of those. For us to now judge what this is would be very difficult. It would be wrong for me to do that. We don't really know what she's up to. She's definitely part of a pride, I'm sure. Let's see where she's gonna go. She's getting quite close to one of our boundaries though, which is not too much of a problem. Let's go. It's 3 years. I don't have to crash over any more trees. Now this morning, this whole area was just jam-packed full of tracks of lions. Lions, lioness, male lions, female lions. We're gonna get stuck here. I think the best would be just to follow her. It seems to have worked for us so far. But a few more of our colleagues join us. So I've been listening for anything, watching her in actual fact more than listening, to see if she's been making any contact calls. And the answer to that is no. Lisa's actually just asked that as well. Has she been making any contact calls? And no, she's just walking quite determined, and quite a determined walk. She's now going into a very thick area. We're gonna have to go around this particular thicket. And she's getting quite close to our boundary, so when she gets to our boundary, this is one particular place that I won't be able to follow her. But not too much of a problem. We haven't had a pretty good view for you. It's been a bit crazy. She hasn't allowed us to follow her, or to actually view her from a static position. Let's see if she calms down a little bit here when she approaches this main road. I'm still busy just looking for where she's at. She's there. She's just following the drainage line. She doesn't look frantic. I must be honest with you that I've seen lions that have been chased before, and they got this sort of wide-eyed look, and they tend to be a bit frazzled. This particular lioness doesn't seem to be exhibiting any of that. As you can see, she's just walking through the bush, minding her own business. She's definitely on a mission somewhere, that's for sure. There she's standing, just listening. Looking back the way that she came. I must be honest, I'm baffled as to say to you exactly what she's doing. I'm just going to say that she has gone out for a walk. That's all I'm going to say. Approaching that boundary that we've we've been talking about. She's just walked straight past the Franklin, literally within feet of a Franklin. She didn't even so much as bat an eyelid. Come back and said that she recalls one of the Nkahuma females having a very visible scar on her back, and I must say, Kay, that you are right there. I also seem to recall one of the thorn tree that you're going to hit. This is one of our boundaries now. Crossing there. Angie at Ohio has just also said that around Elephant Plains, 5 of the 6 Nkahumas were seen, so this could be the 6th member. Very possible, very, very possible. This is the last we're going to be able to see of her. Disappearing there into the grass. I've unfortunately crossed our boundary. So what I did here was this morning that the Nkahumas were on Arathusa. They were actually chasing some buffalo, and if this is the 6th member of the Nkahumas, then she's absolutely going to be heading that way. And that's it. That's a line sighting for you. That's a line sighting on the move. A little bit bumpy and a little bit through the bush for you, but yeah, nevertheless, that's what it was. Lioness on the move. I'm glad that we got that. It was a nice sighting. Nice to see how she was moving. I'm glad to see that she's healthy. I don't know where she was. I'm glad to see that she doesn't look wild-eyed and chased, and like she was being caught alone by those Birmingham boys who've got a reputation for killing lone lionesses. And she's on her way in the general direction of where I heard that the Nkahumas were last seen. So, all good. It just means we can't follow her, which is a pity. I'm now going to move out of the way here so that Andrew can get through. Alright, and we're going to stop and take some of the sticks out of our, well, not my hair, but definitely out of Brian's hair. I treat him a few times over there. Wow, what a sighting. Once again, my shoulders are nice and warm. So Andrew's just going to come past. I'm just going to... he might come past, I don't know. So, and that was that. Quite nice. Thank you for sending through your questions. It's always difficult when we're driving like that to answer everybody's questions that come through. I'm glad that we answered the ones that seem to be the most important. But don't forget that you're welcome to send me through questions at the hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or emails questions at wildearth.tv. You can send us as well. And while we're busy driving off here, I'll gladly answer questions relating to this female, or to the lions in general, about what we did. If you'd like to ask a question about how we knew where we were driving, what trees I did drive over, what ones I didn't. As much as I can, I try and avoid driving over trees, I must be honest. And I try my hardest to try and not get punches, because they are quite difficult to fix, and I'm quite lazy when it comes to that. It's a pleasure, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. That was just Andrew. He was with us when we found her. So Andrew was in the bush. We heard the kudu barking. we both turned around, had a look where this kudu was, and then all of a sudden this lioness just popped out of the bushes in front of us. Boom, have a nice day. It was absolutely lovely, fantastic. Anyway, let's carry on going. James in Kansas City has asked a question that I'm sure is burning in everybody's minds at the moment. What happens if this lone lioness had to meet those Birmingham boys? James, it's such a open question. It's really quite difficult for me to say, and simply because it is I don't really know. You know, judging by history, the lone lionesses, especially from the Nkahuma pride, have been killed. So I can say, based on the history of the Birmingham boys, there's a good chance that she would have been killed or maimed or chased, at least. But difficult to say. You know, the Birmingham boys won't be able to cement their claim on a place. They won't be able to get a pride for themselves if all they did was kill females. So it doesn't make sense that they just keep on killing females. It makes sense that they kill one or two. It always happens that way. But to kill all of the members of a pride would be quite rare. So I don't know. What do I believe at the moment? What do I feel like saying? If I had to pick an answer, I really couldn't pick an answer. It would really be quite difficult for me to pick an answer. What we're going to do, I think we need to watch the sunset from here. It is a beautiful place to watch the sunset from, and will give me a time just to gather myself again. So we've just got a vehicle coming past. I'm just going to be, while you're looking at the sun, I'm just going to be having a chat to some of my colleagues at the moment. So just a quick update for what we've just seen. Hello Lee, how are you?
Hi, how are you doing, sir?
Good, thanks. We are live, so it's just going to be a quick one.
Yeah, no worries.
The tracks of a female leopard cross over at Sydney is quite fresh, and there were some monkeys calling. I don't think they were calling it this lioness. May have,
We're
but I
headed
don't
straight
think
up
so.
towards where those tracks were.
Okay,
I'm going to go have a look, see if we can hop there.
awesome.
All right.
Good,
Enjoy.
enjoy. You too.
Have fun.
Bye everyone. Ciao. You too. There we go. So Carrie, who's 16 years old, is watching the show. Hello Carrie, and has asked, how will the death of one of the Nkahumas, the one that we saw last week, how would that affect the pride dynamics? Carrie, it won't really affect the pride dynamics. Obviously losing a adult lion with the experience gathered over years is a big blow, but prides are designed to sort of come back from things like this. There are enough adult females in the Nkahuma so that the hunting won't really be affected too much, and they've got a male in the form of Junior to add the muscle when they are hunting. Junior won't be able to form a protection against anything, but definitely the muscle to bring down prey that they need, and they're starting to become quite good buffalo killers at the moment. But I hope that answered your question. Before it gets dark, Jamie has bumped into a buffalo herd, and I'm sure she wants to talk to you about this big buffalo herd. And so we're going to be going through to Jamie, and myself and Brian will catch up with you in a little bit when we've got some more updates. So don't go anywhere. We will be back with you shortly, I'm sure.
Welcome back everyone, and what fascinating news about that lioness. I wonder who she could be and where she's off to. Very, very interesting times. And while you have been with Steph, we have been with this fairly large buffalo breeding herd. There's at least 200 of them here, And I must say, this has probably been one of my most spectacular buffalo breeding herd sightings to date, just because in terms of the setting that we were in. So just a little bit earlier they were walking towards us, all highlighted by the setting sun, and a truly spectacular sighting as they start to kick up the dust, and the wind has picked up. It's carrying what I can only assume to be another cold front, as there's a definite nip in it. It's blowing the dust, or has been blowing the dust all around them, making for quite a truly spectacular sighting. For some reason, whenever I have a sighting like this, I often wonder what it must have been like to be in this area 500, 600 years ago, and to have these animals roaming throughout the country. And then it gets me thinking about how incredibly lucky I am to get to experience moments like this, such a truly typical African moment, and how lucky we all are that I'm able to share this kind of moment with you all. I have been fairly nervous, and I'm not sure if that's because of the lions that were in the area earlier today, or the fact that it is incredibly windy. It might just be throwing off their senses slightly. They've all been just a little bit reluctant to come too close to us. Lots and lots of different ages, from the old bulls to a couple of really young calves who are hiding behind their mothers at the moment. There you can hear the wind really picking up. I'm not sure what's prompted this. Ooh, bit of friction there. Buffalo tend to be fairly grumpy as a generalization. They don't like one buffalo getting into the other's space. And that bull on the right, that big bull, actually moved in as soon as he saw the conflict, and that is one of the jobs of these big older bulls, is to keep the peace between the females and the young males and make sure that they behave themselves. Actually hear them grunting and groaning, lots of chewing and rustling as they move through the grass. It's definitely not a quiet or subtle process when a herd of 200 or more buffalo decides to move through an area. And if we can, I've actually spotted some interesting behavior. Now, buffalo are bulk grazers, but this one has decided, or these two actually now, have decided that this apple leaf will make for an interesting dinner snack. And that is very curious, and it's one of those brilliant examples of why the textbooks aren't always necessarily correct. Most textbooks will say that buffalo are purely grazers, and fairly bulk grazers at that, and yet this buffalo was giving us a very good example. He's eating around the apple leaf now, but both of them were definitely snacking on a tree, which is a browsing activity. And I'm just racking my brains thinking about the various properties of apple leaf that might have prompted them to chew on it. Can't actually think of any offhand that might cause them to break from tradition, so to speak, and decide to chew on the apple leaf. But just a quick and interesting reminder that you cannot always base everything about what you read about in books, because nature always has a way of surprising you. he's returned to the traditional grass diet. And it could well be, while we're watching him eat, we can see how dry that grass is. Doesn't look like a very palatable mouthful. Could well be that that is what's prompting them to look for nutrition further afield and not just in the grass. So now there's one at the back who's also nibbling on an apple leaf. So possibly they're not getting all of the vitamins or nutrients that they need from a purely grass-based diet. That buffalo is obviously loving that apple leaf. And on to the next one. And the thing about a herd of buffalo moving through like this, especially on a windy day, is that they can be fairly nervous and actually quite jumpy. And being herd animals with very, very strong herding instincts, when one starts to run, often those around them will set off and run away with them. And we can just imagine, as we look at how incredibly surrounded we are, at least on three sides, by so many buffalo, you can just imagine what it would be like with all of them bearing down on us. And a happy cub, welcome to the sunset safari. You were wondering if I've ever been in a buffalo stampede. I must be honest, not with numbers like this. I was in a buffalo, I suppose you could call it a stampede, but it was only a very, very small herd that set off and started running in my direction. And in that case, there's not much you can really do except trust in the animals and remind them that you are there. So when they are coming at you, what I did in that particular circumstance was tap the side of the door and shout, just to break that sort of fright cycle that they were in and try and get them to remember that I was a person and I was in the way. It's very, very different if you're on foot. I think if you were on foot with a stampeding herd of buffalo, you must look for your nearest high ground, very possibly the nearest high ground being quite a large tree, and see if you can find your way up there as fast as possible. But in terms of sitting in the vehicle, I wouldn't be too worried, but I would definitely be reminding them that there is something in their way. And I have seen when buffalo stampede, very often it takes quite a lot for them to turn away from the direction that they're running in. I've seen them run through bushes and fairly solid looking trees without even blinking. They just sort of bash through them like really powerful small tanks. So it is important to remember that, but I think in a vehicle you would be fairly safe. I would definitely be just reminding them that I'm around. These lot seem fairly far from stampeding at the moment. They've relaxed quite a lot to our presence, and they've just moved around us. Here we go. Looks like, oh no, still grazing, but she looked like she was on her way to that apple leaf as well.
The broken horns at the top. Or like...
That's interesting. It's like the keratin sheath around the edge of her horns is sort of rubbed off. And I do think it almost looks polished smooth. And I think that the keratin layer around the bone of the horns is actually multi-layered. And I think in this case somehow she's chipped off some of the top layer and she's got that very, very smooth, unweathered bottom layer. It's really, really smooth and interesting. She's actually got beautiful horns. They're perfectly symmetrical, or they look perfectly symmetrical the way that they curve up like that. Quite an unusual shape for buffalo. And there she goes, eating the apple leaf. You can see a lot of the herd members still just giving us a slightly hairy eyeball, just making sure that we're not any kind of a threat. And their eyesight is not fantastic, so they'll be aware of us through hearing us and through smell, as well as a sort of general impression of our shape. But they won't be able to see us that clearly, and that's probably why they spend quite a considerable amount of time staring in our direction. And it's been interesting to watch as the wind has swirled and changed direction slightly. The herd has also ever so slightly altered their direction in which they've been moving. They were coming almost directly from the west towards us in the east, and they've actually shifted to go more towards the north. And I think that's because the wind has shifted position and they want to stay moving into the wind. So we have been looking at this fairly mature cow in front of us, and we've also got a couple of young sub-adults around us. I'm just looking for a young female now. I'm not seeing one at the moment. Oh, stampede. Here we go. Exactly what we were talking about when one herd member spooks. Oh. There was a bit of a collision. There was a bit of a collision on the termite mound. They the ones at the top decided to stop, and the rest ran into them. They all seem to be fairly unscathed. It was so funny. It's just their noises of confusion. Anyway, sorry Raisa, we were talking about young female buffalo and whether or not you can apply the term heifer to the young females, and yes you can. You can definitely, I have in the past called them heifers, and you can, as far as I know, you can also do that for some of the larger antelope species. So something like a sable or a kudu, if you're talking about a young female that has not yet bred, then they are referred to as heifers. I'm still looking to see if I can find a good example of a heifer, but they're mostly just that confused bunch around the termite mound. Bless you, Andrew. It's all the dust. They have kicked up a considerable amount of dust. And off we go. On the move again. And that is just because they have spooked slightly. And I don't think they really know what they are running from. And I don't think it's anything too serious. I think that the one probably caught the smell of, or at least caught the sound of the leaves rustling, and they just spooked ever so slightly. Could even have been lion dung that spooked them in this way. And you're going to see the rest of them running off as well. I'm just going to loop around to try and stay with at least one of these groups. See if we can head off with them. And Tyler, who is 12 years old, would like to know if a lion pride would ever attack a herd of buffalo this big. And the answer is yes, but they would do so very carefully. Let them relax for a moment, and I think it is the wind that is making them so unsettled right now. So I'm not sure exactly what it was that caused these buffalo to be spooked. I know that Steph mentioned that the Inkahumas were wandering around this area and following behind the buffalo herd. And Tyler, aged 12, you were wondering if lions would ever attack a buffalo herd this big. And the answer is yes, definitely, but they would have to be very, very careful in doing so, because a buffalo herd this big can be very, very dangerous to a lion. So what the pride would probably do is move behind them and try and catch any of the stragglers or the individuals that are further behind, some of the young calves perhaps, or the sub-adults. And they typically probably wouldn't go for one of the adults, although they definitely could. It's just a little bit more risky for them. And the bigger the lion pride, the braver they can be. But there are lots and lots of recorded cases of buffalo actually returning to chase lions away from trying to kill one of the members of their herd. So they can be very, very brave in defending themselves. So lions would definitely take them on, but probably very carefully. I'm just going to shift back a bit because I think this herd is going to cross the road in front of us, or behind us at the moment. I'd prefer it to be in front of us. As I reposition to get us a nice view of these buffalo crossing the road, Steph has found a very nice rare bird for you guys, and I'm sure he's very keen to show you, so we'll be back with you a little bit later.
Well, from charging around buffalo to this rare bird, and I know that Scott is keeping a bird list with all of you, and I thought that I'd add this very rare one to that. This is a Senegal lapwing and is a burnt area specialist, usually only associated on burnt areas in northern Zimbabwe. But because of the very dry conditions we're having at the moment, we found this very rare vagrant, coming down here. And what this little guy's doing is they feed on mainly termites. So this is what this Senegal lapwing is busy eating at the moment, is a termite or termites. To have a look, for those of you who are interested in birds, grab a screenshot. They are really tough to see any other time of the year. And it's probably only about the 4th or 5th time in my life I've ever seen one of these. So we thought that it was very special to come to you with. And while we're busy watching this lapwing pick up termites, there are a few questions that have come through about the lioness that we were just with that I thought that I'd go through with you while we're busy watching this lapwing eating his termites. Ellen in Arkansas has asked, when separated from their pride, especially when being pursued by another pride or a lion, would a lioness or lion intentionally create a diversion of sorts? Ellen, no, not really. They don't possess that type of imagination. Literally, it's just create space. That would be the starting point for any interaction that they don't enjoy. It would be literally, I need to get out of here at all costs. There wouldn't be time to make a diversion or to run in a different direction. I've never seen that with lions. I've never heard it described before. Funnily enough, the bird that we're looking at the moment does create a diversion. When they nest on the ground and when their eggs are threatened, they quite often or feign having a broken wing or a broken leg to act as a diversion to throw predators off of their babies. So we don't see it in lions, but we do see it in a lapwing 100 times smaller than a lion. Isn't it crazy? And then Mavis from Live Oak, Florida, has asked a question as well, or made a statement as well, that we've said that during a takeover the lionesses will scatter. They will not be part of the conflict, but that's not entirely true, Mavis. It depends on where the conflict takes place. Don't forget that a pride takeover doesn't happen in a single event. A pride takeover happens over many months. The shortest that I've ever seen a pride takeover happen has been 6 months, and the longest pride takeover I've ever seen has been 2 years, with a full 4 successive relays of different males coming through that pride. I mean, it was just crazy. So it doesn't happen in a single event, and therefore even if the lionesses scatter at one conflict, they always rejoin again. And they will fight lions, they will fight adult male lions in a core territory, and they will defend cubs. So they won't scatter when it comes to that, defending a core territory or defending their cubs. Absolutely. So that's our little Senegal lapwing. I hope that you got some nice screenshots for those of you that are interested in the birds. We're going to carry on driving now and see if we can find anything else for you. I mean, this sighting was along with those elephant. This little bird sighting has been a highlight. As I said, I've only seen 4 or 5 of them in my whole career guiding. So all good. Let's carry on going. Getting to that. Cheers, little lapwing. Have a good evening, man. It's getting to that part of the evening where we're needing to start thinking about saying goodbye, or at least I am, at least anyway. And it's been such a fantastic drive. Things that have stuck out for me happen to be those elephant. That little baby that ran down that embankment and then lost his footing was just, that for me is a special thing. I know Brian is enjoying it as well. He's got this big smile on his face. And then that lioness, finding that lioness, you know, following up on some monkeys calling, finding a fresh leopard track, realizing that it had moved out of our area, and the disappointment, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, kudu's giving a bark, and we turn around, there's a lioness walking right behind our car. I mean, what a surprise. And it turned out to be such a nice sighting. Following her through the bush, still don't know what she was doing, we're following her through the bush. And then, of course, probably the highlight in terms of rare sightings for me was this little Senegal lapwing that we've just shown you tonight. So for me, that was my drive. I know that I've had fun today. I hope that you have. Brian's nodding his head. I say thank you very much to Brian for his brilliant camera work. And we will see you definitely during tomorrow's sunrise safari. So from my side, good night.
Everyone, and we have left those buffalo in peace. It has just got to the point in the evening where it's that little bit too dark to really sit and watch them, and I'm definitely not going to be spotlighting them, especially because you never know if there's any lions in the area tailing the herd. So we're just going to do one last loop around where Steph had those leopard tracks, just in the vain hope that maybe they pop out. Unfortunately, the buffalo had obscured quite a lot of the road in terms of tracking. So there's a chance that we might have missed the track somewhere along the line. Just going to use the trusty spotlight to help us highlight any predators. Of our heat wave for now. I did very much enjoy it while it lasted. It does sound like the are still west of the Arathusa boundary on Elephant Plains. They've spent the afternoon there, relaxing in the sun, and apparently following behind another buffalo herd that was moving through that area. So they'd moved on from the buffalo herd that we were at. Sunset safari. I did so enjoy that elephant interaction, and it was such a highlight for me because it was in a way so very human, the way that they responded. The little boy whose mother was there wanted something that the older boy had, which was access to the roots, so he tried to take it, and when the older boy fought back, the little one squealed to mommy, and mommy came to intervene and discipline the older boy. And it was so similar to the scenarios that so many of us would have experienced in our childhood. It was highly, highly entertaining. So special, and one of those things that I love the most about elephants is how incredible their social interactions really are, and how much depth there is to their interactions. Very, very enjoyable sightings. Possibly even one of my favorite elephant sightings to date. So guys, as we come to the end of this sunset safari, it has been a wonderfully magical afternoon. in the really, truly beautiful area of Arethusa. So a big thank you to Andrew for all of his great camera work, and a big thank you to you, the viewers, for joining us each and every day on these live safaris. And tomorrow morning for the sunrise safari, I'm sure that Steph will be following up on who that lioness is, and I will still be searching for Shadow, that sneaky leopard. I'm not sure where she's gone, but looking forward to seeing you all. Big thank you to Tara and Jess in FC, and we will see you all tomorrow for the sunrise safari. Cheers for now.